Recording in progress. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the Safety Always Location and Scouting virtual panel. My name is Matt Roy. I serve as Workforce Development Coordinator with the Upper Midwest Film Office. And part of my role is focus on building hands-on training opportunities and workshops, supporting crew education, and I help production succeed safely and substantially here in northern Minnesota. Part of that is a series that I worked on with Carrie Bush starting last year called Safety Always. And we've done a handful of these now, anywhere from child labor laws to stunts to just general information around production safety. And tonight, I'm really stoked that we're going to have Andrew Sleet, a well-seasoned location manager, chat about his journey and his experiences and the things that drive him wild when it comes to safety on locations. So, Ricky, did you want to add anything at all to this?
Just that we're thrilled everybody is here with us. And Andrew has a wealth of knowledge about locations. And I've picked up some knowledge from this guy. So he's worked on some of the biggest around with huge budgets. He's been all over the country, and we are so thrilled that he's with us today.
Yeah. And with that, Andrew, why don't you give us a brief introduction and then we'll jump into some questions.
Hey everybody, my name's Andrew Sleet. I've been working in the film industry about 25 years now, all over the film industry in 25 years, but for the most part been focused in locations and location management. Been all up and down the East Coast doing that. Managed, key assistant managed, scouted, assistant location managed. Just run the gamut of that. I've held positions in production design. I've been in the camera department. I've been a boom operator in the sound department. I've been a cable utility in the sound department. Those were both other union positions. It's been a long time. But locations has been the focus, and safety has always been, it may not be talked about all the time, but it is always at the forefront wherever you're going, because you want to go home at the end of the day and see your family and be healthy and go back to work the next day. But yeah, I'm Andrew Sleet. I'm from Oregon. I don't know, my dad's a scientist. He moved me around the country growing up as a kid. I grew up in Raleigh, and then I moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, for college or after high school. There I was cooking in a restaurant, and Frank Capra Jr. was one of our clientele, and he would come in on Sunday mornings, and I'd cook him French toast and bacon, and I would talk movies with him. And a lot of other film people would come in, and my friends, I guess this is sort of going into the story of how I started making movies, but
Yeah.
And so some friends of mine were going to make some independent films, $15,000 movies. I was in community college at that time. I was taking a black and white photography class and was loving that. And my friend wanted me to take locations photos for him, having nothing to do with locations in the film industry in my later life. I said, sure. And he said, hey, I like how you framed those images. Will you film these movies for me? So I filmed his movie. That snowballed into the independent film industry for a while. And then I met someone in locations who was in the union, is a Teamster. And I got hired on a movie called The Mark Pease Experience. That was probably around 2004, 2005. Nobody's heard of that movie, and Ben Stiller made sure that no one will ever hear of that movie, I believe. And then we did that, and it just snowballed. And this was all in Wilmington, North Carolina. Dila De Laurentiis built a studio there probably 50 years ago now. Carol Co Studios, made several movies there, and that slowly turned into Screen Gem Studios, not producing movies there, but providing studio space and film crew and equipment. So that became a hub of film, and Wilmington, North Carolina bred a lot of up and coming filmmakers, and got a lot of people in the business. And we worked with people from LA who would come out for the film incentives and our locations. And we would make their movies and just network that way, and just slowly grew and grew. And then, the big $100 million movies came a few years later, but they're all at the same at the end of the day, really, if you ask me. But yeah, Wilmington, moved to Charleston, moved to Atlanta, and then now I'm up here, trying to, show the beauty of Minnesota to the film community in the rest of the country. So I think there's a huge opportunity here. I think the weather's perfect. I think the landscapes are perfect. I think if you want snow, you're not going to miss out. Um, but I think it's really cool here, and I think you could really get away with a lot up here. There's a lot of, unfortunately, empty factory space here, which I think is a great opportunity for film productions to come set up shop and do their Bad Boys series, or do a Godzilla series, or things like that, and just sort of, put a flag in the ground, so to speak. So that's sort of my goal right now, and just get other people to come here and spend their money.
Yeah.
But what else? I don't know. Let's turn it back over to Matt Roy here. That was my brief introduction.
Thank you. No, it's great. We like to hear where everybody comes from. It's your journey
Yeah.
is how you got here. So again, I want to just, anybody that has any questions, please just throw them up in the chat and I'll get to them at the end. We're going to just kind of breeze through some of the questions that I've got through with Andrew, and then open it up the last 15 minutes for kind of a Q&A. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of a broad question, but when you're first arriving to location, what are some of the very first safety considerations that kind of go through your mind, or what are you, kind of looking for when it comes to, putting a location in some dock and sharing it with folks?
Right. I think, I guess I took this in two parts. One is scouting, and then one is the physical production aspect. Scouting, for me is, am I trespassing, which is a big deal around here. There's been a lot in the news about people getting shot and stuff for driving down the wrong driveway. So that's sort of a thing I think about now. I still drive down driveways, but I'm aware of that. Are there animals on the property? That's a big thing for me. I've never been bitten by a dog. I've scouted for a lot of movies in 25 years. I've never been bitten by a dog or an alligator or a snake. But they're there, and you have to be conscious and aware. Not up here, I guess, but down in the south, we have alligators that are in the woods that I'm scouting, and we have copperheads and water moccasins and stuff like that. So I think wildlife is a factor for me. Um, and then I guess for the another aspect is, does this actually work? Is this an actual feasible location? Is this building condemned? Is it going to be cost prohibitive or cost effective to repair floors in case somebody is going to fall through them? Or, like, there's a lot of structural engineering, that might be involved. Is there a lot of mold? Is there a lot of lead paint? What is the cost that it's going to take to mitigate the mold in an entire 12-story vacant hospital building, that you don't want the spores coming from the upper floors through the elevator shafts down to the lower floors. So if you're gonna film there, which on The Righteous Gemstones, we filmed that in Charleston, and that show was filmed in an old abandoned Navy hospital for the hospital scenes. So I had to have that entire building mitigated for mold and asbestos. So lots of doors sealed in plastic, do not enter, a lot of cleaning dead animals out of spaces, and just keeping the crew out of places, which is really hard to do because they're there for a long time. They get bored. There's a lot of downtime. Do not enter means what's back there? I want to go see it. That's what it means to me typically. So physical production, for me, my biggest thing is signs. I put up signs, clear signs. I do an overhead. This is crew parking. This is catering, extras, holding, hair, makeup, wardrobe. This is set. Shuttles will be pick up here, drop off here. Company move location map. Same thing there. There's always an overhead. And then there's signs to get people where they need to go and to keep them out of places they need to go. So for physical production, I just think signs are the best, and I'll go crazy with signs sometimes because
Yeah.
you got to do it. You got to pretend everybody's in elementary school basically, and just sort of it takes it off of the pressure off your chest too. If look, you can't miss it. You can't miss
Yeah.
it, right?
Well,
You
and everybody's
can't.
got a million things on their minds too while
Yeah,
they're working.
right.
So it's not their mind isn't thinking like, well, this seems like a practical spot for a bathroom. They're just like, bathroom, where's the sign? Because
And I've been
that's
living there prepping a location for a month, so I
Mhm.
know the place, and they've just shown up 15 minutes ago and don't know where anything is. Where's my truck? Where's the bathroom? They have all the questions. I've given them an overhead, but at the end of the day, I don't know, that's buried in their phone, in their email at this point, or somewhere else if they thought to save it, if they want to use it. So I don't know. I think a lot of people rely on signage on location. I think that's a big deal.
And you mentioned scouting. I've done a fair amount of that as well. And what are some of the more common hazards that scouts and crew tend to miss when they're out doing it? Or, if you're a director producer and you don't have a huge budget for a locations manager, super indie short film, what are some of the things that, people might not consider? And, I know mold and asbestos is a big one, but what are things that people should consider if they're going to be doing these kind of hybrid jobs where they're the ones directing and producing or, and location managing?
I mean, I don't know. It turns into other things other than safety sometimes. Like, is there a bar nearby and what day do you want to film? And is that sound going to be a problem? Or, just all the scheduling fiascos that go along. I mean, if I'm in a neighborhood, I mean, it depends on how much money you have. If I've got a endless amount of money, I can go into any neighborhood and people can be mad at me and I can either make them happy or just not listen because I have enough money. But without any money, I don't know. I think you would have to be just more focused on appeasing everyone and trying to fit within the parameters of where you are. I don't know. I mean, I I don't really ever have any issues, to be honest with you. I really have never had. My biggest safety concerns have always been on set. I've never had any scouting safety concerns. I mean, alligators, I've run into an alligator. That was scary. I was like, this could be, this could be it for me. But um yeah, I don't know. Like I miss things. It's easy to miss things when you're scouting because your face is in a camera, right? So I was doing Righteous Gemstones. There was a scene we did in a grocery store. We did an eye care where Edie's husband has his optometry center in the back of a grocery store. And so in the back parking lot, back of the building in the parking lot, we had trucks parked. And apparently somebody had stolen a grate off uh, a sewer drain in the gutter, and one of the grips was walking through the gutter and fell right down the sewer drain. And so this is just, and it's pitch black. You couldn't see anything. I never saw this, but I didn't walk behind the building and look at the sewer drain. It was just like, I got I got so many other locations and it's not something I was thinking about. Like, it's just something that escaped me. So
Mhm.
there's just things that are going to pop up and you have to be ready to answer for them, and hopefully you're there to help in that when that situation presents itself.
Um, kind of pivot a little bit into some of the paperwork and permits. Why are permits not just paperwork, but actually a layer of safety for the cast and crew? And what is your job as a location manager when it comes to making sure that not only because you're representative of the location itself, but you're also representative of the production? Maybe you could speak a little bit to that too.
Well, the permit gives us the parameters. Here's what we want to do. And these are the streets I want to do it on, and this is how I want to do it, and these are the times I want to do it. Like downtown Atlanta, the permit only gives me certain hours. It gives me certain parking spaces, which cost individual amounts. Everything has a price in a big urban setting. You're going to pay a lot more money. But the permit just gets you legally involved with the city. You've given the city a certificate of insurance with their name on it. And then you're also giving them a permit. Ricky can probably speak to this a little bit as well. But that just gives you the parameters and gives you the permission to do what you need to do. Hire the police officers to protect your crew, to shut the roads down, just to make it so you can get in there and do what you need to do with the control that you need to do it. But the permit is basically, we're telling the city everything we're going to do the best we can. Maybe we don't want to say everything sometimes, but
Yeah.
we say it a nice way. But I mean, hey, I want to light a van on fire at this end of the block and have it drive to this end of the block and then hit this barrier and blow up. And that's in downtown Atlanta. So that's on a permit, right? And that in turn gives you the contact with the fire department, the police department. The fire department will tell you, well, you need to hire EMS for these types of stunts because you're using this pound of gas bomb in the van you're going to blow up. So you're going to get all your other departments involved. You're going to get your special effects people involved. Your art department's going to be involved because this will go into designing the sets. So the safety sort of spreads out into all the departments. The ADs are the biggest ones in charge of safety on set. I defer to them, or they take that responsibility themselves. But we get to all the planning up to that point, but we do discuss the safety with the ADs. And the tech scout, a lot of that'll come up and we'll all discuss that. And hopefully a lot of that's been discussed beforehand and been taken care of because your tech scout's pretty close to physical production. And that's like 50 people walking through your set. So hopefully it's safe.
Right.
But usually the ADs will give you lists of things or, parameters on where actors need to be and how spaces need to be clear. DPs will give you things on what they need cleaned out and moved for their lighting and camera placement and stuff like that. If that answered the question.
Yeah, no, it answered it. And I'd like to even just go a little bit further into that because I think this is something that, a lot of folks starting off or, if you're working on smaller projects, these are overlooked as, just a basic location agreement and what should go into that and why those things are so important for anything that you're doing, whether it be no budget filmmaking or, you've got a few $100,000 to spend, but you're going to be at a cousin's house. Why it's still important to make sure that you have some sort of agreement and some of the other paperwork that might go into that too.
You're not going to get a permit without insurance.
Yep.
So get your and then go get a permit. And you don't have to put the whole movie on the permit. You just need to.
Okay. And with location agreements, you know, those between like a homeowner and a location manager or production should state, what they're getting, what the location fee is, what the parameters are.
State dates, times, amounts, prep and wrap costs are usually less than physical production because the wear and tear on the property isn't 150 people, it's 20 to 40.
Mhm.
So those can be different, or you can do a lump sum. You could say, hey, I need this as Jesse's house for the next 6 months. So I want to pay you $30,000 to $40,000 a month, and we'll talk about you staying here or not. And you can go that route. But the location agreement, it also states that so dates, times, amount. It doesn't really state what you're filming there. That's not really a factor typically in a location agreement. It could be, but it's usually just for filming purposes. You're basically renting the owner's property. You're becoming the tenant and you're doing an additional certificate of insurance that you're adding them to. So if I stub my toe or I break a window or whatever, something of value, I destroy the refrigerator, they're insured. And then it states that the production can come back within a set amount of time that could be negotiated to do reshoots, and that homeowner cannot sort of put you over a barrel and say, well, you want to come back, it's $1 million. It sort of
Right.
says if you want to come back in a month to a year, there's usually a year limit on that. That it's like it's the same amount, or it could be negotiated a little higher, but it's usually not as big a deal. But the location agreement, I mean, they're all different. It depends on who you're signing it with. I've signed location agreements with people who have attorneys and they turn into 20-page agreements. And I've seen people just sign it and they don't care and they just walk away. There's parking agreements, there's driveway agreements, there's support agreements, there's catering agreements, there's bathroom trailer agreements. There's generator parking agreements, there's catering agreements, there's every kind of agreement. You want an agreement, you can just make an agreement up for it, basically.
Right. Yeah, and
Uh,
I think like the biggest point is that make sure that you're covering your production as a locations person, but you're
oh,
also representing the client, which is the homeowner or the business owner that you're going to be using their space. So you kind of are the liaison between the two, and you don't want to you don't want to piss the homeowner or the business owner off because that might be another location you can use in the future.
that's right.
Um, so, kind of pivoting a little bit and talking, a bit more about environments, what special precautions do you usually take in remote areas, sort of with a limited like emergency access? You talked about the South and your experiences down there. Now, obviously, you've been up in Minnesota for a couple of years. You've experienced our winters, and those should be kind of a factor when we're all thinking about shooting exteriors in the snow and this field in the middle of nowhere is beautiful. But what are some of the precautions that should be taken when thinking about that?
I think up in this area, it's tents and heating and interior spaces that you can rent to support your production that are nearby. Like if I'm filming in a residential area, I would probably want to rent a church parking lot and rent their congregation hall for catering, or maybe a theater, maybe an abandoned grocery store. Maybe there's some storefronts in a strip mall that aren't being utilized that I can rent and put a heater in from Herc or from, I can rent all that gear. Everything's a rental. So those would be something up here. I mean, you don't really have the snakes and stuff up here, but in the South, I would hire Jimmy Sessoms and he would come out a few hours before the crew showed up and he would go through the set and he'd pull all the snakes out and he'd put the little baby alligators in the back of his truck and drive them to other parts.
Wow.
And that was a real thing. We had to do that often. Um, I usually carry a lot of ant dust or ant powder on the location truck to put on like ant piles that seem to pop up everywhere. Let me see. And then usually it's just a lot of planning. Is there like an emergency room? What's the closest ER, right? That's going
Mhm.
to go on your map. Your ADs are going to call you and ask you, hey, what's the closest ER here? What's the phone number? So you're going to want to always call and double check. Hey, are you guys 24 hours? What kind of services do you have? But as long as you can get somebody at least to a doctor or medical attention, maybe you're hiring EMS, maybe production is going to hire an on-set medic to be there with some different equipment that day to maybe cover snake bites or frostbite. I don't know. I've yet to do a movie in the upper Midwest Film Commission zone in the winter. So I'm trying desperately to do that.
Well, we'll get you on that. You and I were talking before we jumped on the Zoom a little bit about Sarah Jones and that whole scenario, and you knew a lot of the crew that were involved in that production, and if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit just in regard to, uh, at one point we were going to have somebody from the railroad company kind of talking about, just how to get in touch with anyone from the railroad to if you wanted to film there, take photography, but he wasn't able to join us this evening. So if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about that what happened there and why the location manager wasn't even privy to that whole thing and what ended up happening.
Um, I haven't brushed up on this story in a while, but basically productions have taken to the habit of doing a day zero of filming. So it's like this pre-pro day. Everybody comes to say it's like day one, but we call it day zero. I don't know if that's for insurance purposes or something, but it's a day to sort of knock the dust off a little bit. So this day, I believe, was their day zero, and they were just doing a dream sequence that Greg Allman was having of him laying on a hospital gurney on railroad tracks. Um, Apparently, the location manager wasn't there that day because he had taken care of the location and he didn't need to be there. He was prepping for day one and day two. So he wasn't there. The producer was there and he said it was okay to film on a train trestle. They said it was a dead, non-working train trestle. So they set their cameras up and they set their gear up on the train trestle, and lo and behold, a train came. Trains are very powerful, and they were unable to get all the gear off the trestle. The train hit the gurney with the mattress on it. That caused it to explode. The train killed Sarah Jones, and then a few friends of mine were injured by that gurney exploding when the train hit it. Basically, because they had been told by the producer that this location was cleared, but it was not. So I don't know. I've filmed with trains a lot. I've built locations, relationships with people at CSX. I had a really good friend who I worked with for many years at CSX, and I don't know. I haven't worked with the trains in a long time because of Sarah Jones. It's sort of a thing film companies tend to stay away from, especially down south. The last time I tried to do some filming I was on a pilot. We tried to film near some railroad tracks. I got there, the electricians had set their lights up too close to the railroad tracks. I wish I had a schematic of this, but there's footage from the center of railroad tracks that you're allowed to be. Like there's 10 feet from the center rail, and then there's like a 50-foot distance that they'll allow you to be. So if you want to be near railroad tracks, you have to be pretty far away to film the railroad tracks, is what I've noticed. So CSX came out and kicked them and all their gear off the tracks.
And what is CSX?
That's a train company. That's a shipping
Okay.
train company across the country. I don't know if they're up here or not, but they own the railroads, from what I understand.
Right.
So I think this was a CSX railroad where Sarah Jones was, because they own the railroads down there in the South. And they did not have permission to be there, and they ended up having to sue the production company. I mean, I don't know if you heard about it. It just turns
Yep.
into a legal battle, and it's like the gunshot on Rust. It turns into all of that, right? I don't know. I don't have any comment on the Rust thing. I wasn't there. I wasn't there for Sarah Jones, but I don't know what happened at Rust.
I think, well, the main point there would be, right, is to be in touch, having the location manager there every day when you're filming, because if you're not cleared for a location, that's sort of your job and responsibility is to then go to,
or a representative from the location department who's at least willing to say, hey, you didn't tell me that we could do this. I'm sorry to call you at 3 a.m., but I just wanted to make sure, like,
Mhm.
because location manager can't be there all the time, but hopefully you have people on your team that will say, who will know the plan and have all the information that you have and have given to everybody else, and all the contacts and all the people they need, and to talk about doors opening and closing and what time trucks are coming through here to pick up trash cans, and what time. Sometimes you're filming near a train track. I had to do this on Sleepy Hollow, the TV series, and the CSX train came once in the morning and went back, and then the evening it came back and went back again. So we had to make sure people were away at those times during the day. And then other than that, we were fine, just constant contact with them, and, the ADs sort of make sure that you're on that because they want the safety for everyone too. So they'll remind you, hey, is CSX, what's the deal? Or what's the deal with the train? Or what's the deal with the alligator wrangling? Or, whatever it may be, whatever safety concern you may have. What's the deal with flipping the tractor trailers back upright on the highway to clear them? It's like, it's just a process, getting the right people involved and having them there at the right time.
Right. And then, I just want to pivot off that a little bit too, and go talk, how do you make sure, and I know that it's not specifically your job to communicate with the entire crew, but how do you make sure that the lead actors, the day players, the crew, everybody understands the safety risks of the locations?
Usually there's like at the beginning of your film day, the AD will call the crew around and give a speech on, we've got gunfire today, or, we have animals, whatever. There's safety restriction involved with those, and you'll get additional literature attached to your call sheet from the night before that would specify what, fog machine use in a bar, whatever it may be. And then when the AD is done with that, they would ask if anybody else had anything else to say about the location. That's when locations is usually asked to speak. We usually have something to add. Don't go upstairs. If you do go upstairs, don't go across the do not enter tape or caution tape. Things like that. It's
Yeah.
the path here, stay on the path. If you need to ride to your car, please ask us or transpo. Don't walk through the woods, or don't just venture off the path. Sort of stay with production.
Um, and how do you coordinate with other departments like stunts or art? Obviously the two that might have the most impact on locations. How do you maintain safe practices?
Well, I mean, you can't be everywhere at once. Stunts typically wants to be safe because they want to keep doing stunts. Art I think most people want to be safe. It depends on where you are. Everything is a coordination. It all starts with talking to the locations with each department. And just sort of making your plan. Stunts is going to want to put a pick point in somewhere in a wall or something. So you put that on your list to the structural engineer. He needs to check that. Art department's going to want to hang a neon sign off the front of this building and new awnings. Okay, well, I mean, a lot of it turns into a structural engineer. Can we do that? Can we get to that part of the building with permission and safely to do it? Usually we can. Usually there's a better way than I thought of doing it. So usually it works out, but it's just a lot of planning. I wrote that plan. It's just a lot of planning and phone calls and texts and meetings and in-person meetings and meetings with vendors, making sure they can do it properly. Because a lot of the times you're screwing things into people's buildings. You're digging up their yards. And these are old, a lot of these are old dilapidated places. Like these are places people don't go anymore. So they can be pretty gross. And if I'm going to drill into a wall, is it just going to fall down? I've seen that in a lot of locations.
Well, hopefully, you don't have to deal with too many more of those types of locations.
That's part of the fun, you know.
That's the fun, right? Um, has there ever been a time when you had to, stop or delay a shoot because of safety issues, or that you had to make a call where you're like, halt until whenever?
It's always been weather related. That has always been a weather related issue. The first time I had to do that, I was doing Youth in Revolt in Michigan, and we were in a trailer park, and it was night, and tornadoes were in the area. This is the time of flip phones and dial up. So I went into the office of, I didn't have a computer in my car, I didn't have my laptop next to me. I went into the trailer park office and they had a desktop, and I looked at the weather, and I actually did shut production down that night because of the storms. And we had nowhere to go. It was because we had to stake bed. That means put all our stuff into open trucks and just take it into the set. So it was just sort of a call. Um, are we gonna wait it out, or are we gonna get out of here? And the call was made to just pack it up for that night. It's always been weather related. I was doing a movie in Durham, North Carolina. We were on the interstate. It's always when you like least don't need it to happen. We were on the interstate. The whole crew had to run under the overpass, and just watch a huge storm roll by, and you know, put their stuff back on their trucks and just let it sit there. When I was doing Vice Principals in Charleston, we were out in the parking lot filming, and a storm came, and we didn't even have time to get the cameras out, and we just stood inside the cafeteria of this high school and watched all the gear just get drenched and blown over, and cameras crashing on the ground. And so that was good. I mean, nobody got hurt, right? And it's just equipment, it's just gear. So that was fine. But those are like, just thinking about it earlier today, like those are probably the biggest safety concerns. I was on set once, and they turned an 18-wheeler trailer over pretty close to us, and it was a little nerve-wracking because I was downhill from it, and I was like, what if it just kept rolling? So like big stuff like that is probably best to, you know, check before you do it, as opposed, people get in a hurry, and get in a rush, and it gets late, and it gets, time to go home, and people want to pack their stuff up early, and that can make you forget that you can get hurt easily. I've seen more people fall off lift gates at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, and not be able to come back to the show because they're in a hurry. Just get gear out of there and got somewhere else to be. So I think that's the biggest thing I would take away, is just sort of, breathe and pause, and sort of, think about what you're doing.
Right. And you bring up a good point too, is weather. We often get married to a schedule. And I know when I first started off, it's like you got a weekend. We're gonna shoot this whole weekend outside.
Yeah.
Well, you get to Friday and then you look at the weather for the next day, and it's gonna be thunderstorms. And what do you do, on a longer form feature where you have 18 to, so oftentimes, 30, 40 days of shooting, you've got to have a cover set and
Right.
making sure that that's your backup plan. So, in that scenario, when something like that happens last minute, how do are you scrambling to find that, or do you guys have that in the back pocket?
I mean, a cover set's just sitting there waiting typically. So it just depends. Have you used your cover set already? Like if you don't have a cover set um, established or like planned, usually a cover set's just going to wait. So you can always run there. Maybe it just depends. It depends on if art department's ready for production to go there. Um, that's sort of a factor. Do you have studio space? Do you have a set built? That's usually your cover set is your stage, right? Do you have a house? I don't know. It depends on the circumstances, really. I think cover sets are a luxury a lot of the time.
Oh yeah.
Um, uh, but yeah, your circumstances, I don't know. It depends. I'll just be jumping through hoops if we have to jump like that. I mean, it depends on cost. What does it cost to pack the crew and then the crew to travel to the cover set or the alternate set? What does that cost? How much time do you lose? Is it going to be worth it if they go over there, or where do we have to go after that? Like, is it worth it for Transpo to make that move and then drive the trucks all the way back somewhere else? And is that going to kill time? Like, how much money are you losing by doing these moves, I guess is what happens. But how much money are you losing by not getting your shots either? So I don't know. I think waiting it out typically has been the idea, because it always changes. It's hard to, oh, there's a question. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've had to run around like a headless chicken and get locations last minute. And, I don't know. Am I thinking safety when I'm doing that? Probably not. I mean, I'm probably, but I'm doing my job that I've done a long time. So I think I'm not taking risks or unsafe chances.
Yeah. And this is kind of off sort of the questions, but I've definitely, produced / location managed places and been in, a situation within the last couple of years where, the director and the creatives all really loved this basement of this building. Very old building, lots of smells, lots of chemicals, lots of things down there. And even I was like, it's a great location. There's so much potential for what we're trying to film. But then you get there on a day and we didn't consider what everybody else's sort of sensitivities might be to the smells or to the environment that we're in. So, and I think that's part of this too, is as a locations person, you have to kind of think about like all of the people that you're going to have there and different sensitivities. Someone might be allergic to plants that are around there, whatever the situation is. So it's a lot to bear and consider too when you're looking at these locations and considering those for production. I know that I've scouted places that were absolutely perfect for what this director or the producer are looking for, but they never made it to my location list because there were too many factors that just went against. There's not enough parking, or it's up a hill. How am I going to get all these vehicles parked? And you have to consider that there's hundreds of other people that could be showing up to set. So
Yeah, where do they go?
exactly.
Where do they go eat? Where do they do their work? Where do they put all the stuff they bring with them? Like it's a big thing.
Well, I'm going to jump to some questions really quick. Colin asked, who do you report to? Do you have people reporting to you? What can you share about the dynamics?
I report to the director and the production designer. The director's usually very busy. So I would give my information to the production designer, and then they would probably cull through all the scout images and say out of 100 houses, they could pick 5 of those and say, these are perfect. I want to show these to the director. And then I would take the director and the production designer and probably the production manager to those locations to sort of vet them and see if they work for the production manager and AD's parking, catering, distance, things like that. To the director and the DP, does it work for their shots? Are there lighting placements? And things like that. Can we actually film this here? And can I get all the scenes I need? Hey, puppy. But I report, I don't know, I report to a lot of people. I would report to all of those people because budgetarily I have to talk to the production manager, the unit production manager, line producer about my crew, how many people I can hire, the hours I can work them, how many union people I can hire. So the production manager would be responsible for that. The AD is going to really be involved with the cast and how we take care of the cast and transport them to set and from set and hold them on set. And what am I doing with these 300 extras that I need to get to set today? And then back here to wardrobe and catering, and then back to set. Where are they going to be, and how are we going to do that? Well, we better get Transpo involved, and we better get a bus, and so everybody starts piling on, and you start involving a lot more people. I would say Transpo, locations, production management, AD, art department. We sort of put this big ball together that the production staff comes in and sort of beats up and makes a movie or
Yeah.
makes content.
You brought this up earlier too, and we had one of these safety always panels on fix it and pre is what we called it. And part of that conversation, I believe we talked about the importance of tech scouts, and not always in the independent film do you get both a director and a tech scout. But the tech scout, I think, is one of the most important things to have as a part of a production, no matter how big or small, because you're doing, I'll let you, talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, that's just where you're going to get all the info, right? Like I usually like to spend my time with the rigging crews on a tech scout. That's where the work's going to happen. That's where your prep's going to go in with running your cable. Can I run my cable over this building? Where can I park my generator? Is my generator parked in a street? So if it's in a street in Atlanta, I have to have a police officer next to a generator if it's in the street 24/7 with lights flashing. So the tech scout's going to tell me, a lot of light placement, the big stuff that the peripherals of filmmaking. It's going to tell me where trucks are going to park. It's going to tell me, walking paths, what's on camera, hopefully what's not going to be seen. That's always up in the air, but where you can park your trucks. The tech scouts going to say where I can the ADs are going to tell me where to put my actors, and I'm going to be able to show them the options that I provided. It's like, hey, come here, second AD. Let's go look at all these options here. And they're going to go, yes, this works. Let's do that for this. When we're filming over here, let's move them over here. We're going to find places to put all our carts when we're filming scenes so they can remain out of camera shot. We're just going to find where everybody's going to go and basically sort of show the crew, the heads of the departments, and maybe their best boys, sort of the lay of the land, and give them an idea of how they need to put their work together for that location.
Going to another question here. How common is it to have to move locations during production?
I mean, for TV shows, it's pretty common. There's a lot of I see a lot of company moves, but they're planned. Your day would be built that way. So we're going to start over here at the country club, and we're going to do this scene right out front. That's going to take, an hour and a half of filming. So you got to calculate that time, and then you're probably going to move somewhere else. So maybe you're going to move closer to the stage to do another little small scene. You may have two.
Oh, Andrew, I think I said it was lose a location.
Wait, say that again.
During production, how common is it to lose a location?
To lose a location? Not during production. I mean, once you sign a contract, it's going to be hard to lose a location. unless it's just too much of a hassle and it's not worth it, then I would just probably end up tearing it up. But I don't think I've ever lost a location. I don't think so. It's not common. It's not common to lose locations, I don't think.
Which again goes back to the importance of having contracts, because if you don't have one and you're filming in somebody's house and then suddenly they're like, I don't want you here.
I think you don't lose a location because you're just honest, right?
Yep.
You're honest and you tell people, hey, I'm gonna break some stuff and there's gonna be 150 people in your house and they're gonna be laying on your bed and I'm gonna unplug your refrigerator, but I'm gonna have a moving company come in and move all your furniture out. I'm going to put you in a hotel. I'm gonna board your dog. I'm going to give you per diem. I'm going to pay you a nice rate just to use your house. When we're done, I'll paint the walls back whatever color you like them painted. I'm going to maybe remodel your kitchen. It just depends. It depends what happens per production. But
But
honestly,
it's also the reassurance, right?
honesty is all it is. Like that's why I've been able to do it. I'm honest and I've honestly felt like I've worked for the location owner. The end of the day, the production leaves and you're left there. You got to walk down the street and see these people and they're going to remember you if you didn't treat them right. So, that's how I've always treated it. I just treat them human and equal is what I've done.
Yep.
So that seems to have worked. So yeah.
Yeah, I think honesty and also the reassurance, making sure that you're taking care of them and that they know that, it's not going to be a shock to them when 50 people start walking in and, 30 cars are parked in their driveway and you've got, a 3-ton grip truck. Um, you want to make sure that you're pretty upfront. And I think that's what the best use of a contract is for, right? It lays it all out. It says everything that's going to be in there.
There's been a lot of groundwork to get to the contract, right? I mean, you've probably given them a sample contract, you've given them a sample of certificate of insurance. You've been talking, you knocked on this person's door randomly and you introduced yourself and got them to let you in their house within like a minute to take photographs of every corner of their house. And you're begging them not to be in your photographs because they're cleaning. But so you've started this conversation, right? You said, hi, my name's Andrew Sleet. I'm with Paramount, Fox, whatever, Netflix. And I'm just in the neighborhood today. The director drove by and said he liked your house. So I was coming by to see if you'd be interested in allowing me to scout it to throw in the hat to see if we could use it in our movie. And that's how you get the ball rolling.
Yep.
It's a yes or no, right? It's a lot of yes or no questions in the beginning. There's really good like negotiating books that I listen to on Spotify in my car. And I find them to be very helpful. But it's really you're building a relationship. I mean, if it's a business, you're going to want to film there again. It's probably a hot item. It's probably a place that people are like, oh, wow, that looks like the 50s. And, they're going to want to film there over and over again. So you're building this relationships that's going to last years. I mean, I can go back to a lot of these cities I filmed in, and those relationships are still there.
Andrew, I've got a quick question about that.
Yeah.
When you go to a homeowner, how often do you ask if they want to see the script, or how often do they ask? I don't know if I'm going to say yes, I
Never
want to see the
ask.
script.
I don't
They
ever
never.
ask. So I have I'll either ask production for, or I'll just come up with my own synopsis of the movie, right? And it's usually a sentence or two. I mean, it's pretty easy. They're all sort of like, oh, I'm working on a romantic comedy. I'm working on a buddy action movie. I'm working on a HBO series. And it's just sort of, it doesn't take a lot because we're typically the first interaction they have ever had with Hollywood. Like I'm the first time Hollywood's ever come knocking on their door. And then I usually give them I tell them to Google me. I'm like, just Google me and you can see I'm legitimate. I have to sort of prove my legitimacy to these people. But I typically don't give scripts And if I did give part of a script, I would have to get that approved through production. And it would usually just be some of the scenes we would film at that location. It wouldn't be an entire script. It would just be what we decided to give them from that location. If there was something risque in the script that took place at that location, they may not ever see that.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't be allowed to be on set when that was happening anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask too, just to that point too, is, what sort of credentials should somebody have if they are out location scouting for the first time, or, in general? It's again, you're knocking on a stranger's door. You're taking a risk by doing that, and you're also asking them to take a risk to let you in. So what should you offer them as reassurance, but also, as a form of credentials?
I mean, my tool is a business card. I have a business card in my hand when I ring the doorbell, when I knock on the door. When they come to the door, my hand is extended with a business card. It has my name, my phone number, an IMDb link. It just gives them a way to research me. And it's really more of a, hey, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm going to be walking up and down the street all day. Maybe you just want to take this information and you can Google me. And if you're interested, give me a call. I'm in the neighborhood. I'll swing back by. It's something like that. I think the business card is a great thing. I think the film commission would be a great outlet for something like that. I don't know how that's implemented. Um, but I've talked to Sherry and Ricky about that before a little bit. I think there is a cool way that could happen, to sort of call into the film commission, or maybe a badge is involved, or just some way to a list to be maintained of, hey, I'm scouting for this movie today in St. Louis County, and Ricky has the list. And then when Mrs. Robinson calls and says, hey, this guy knocked on my door. He walked down my no trespassing driveway, and like, oh, well, he's a legitimate person. Here's some links to his information, and et cetera, et cetera. I just think that, but to me, the business card is just sort of like, I'm not offensive. Here's my info, and I'll come back if you want me to.
And I got one last question from Colin. What are the differences in responsibilities between location managers, key assistant location managers, location assistant, and location scouts? I mean, that's a big one to answer. And mostly on the project sizes that we have around here, it's going to usually be like a 2 or 3 person team, but I'll let you kind of explain that.
So the location manager is usually very deeply involved with the production designer and director. So they're working really hard with them to get everything solidified. Once we've locked those locations in, then it's all about administrative work, permitting, and then having your staff. So key assistant location managers are just a step down from the location manager. They're basically location managers, but the location manager would give out the key several locations to manage specifically. So if I'm the key location manager, my location manager would say, hey, I need you to do the house, the shopping mall, and the hotel, and those would be my responsibilities. And then another key would get another 3 to 5, and then another key would get another 3 to 5 locations. And you're basically managing those locations. You're doing all the logistics, everything. You're just doing a checklist. You're doing the permitting for those locations, maybe showing those permits to your location manager. But the location manager is really handling like filming in a big public area with the city, or on a college campus maybe, or the more involved permits or contracts even. Location manager is usually involved in like, hey, we want to film in this mansion, and this billionaire has a lawyer, and so they have to do days of contract negotiations, bouncing between their lawyer and our lawyer, and so they can just be tied up in that for days. The keys are managing the locations, the ALMs, assistant location managers. This changes where you are. It's not always the same. I'm speaking from Atlanta, honestly. The assistant location managers are like the Keys assistants. So they are running the sets for the Keys and they are on set while the production crew is there. They're humping the tents around. They're changing, maybe doing trash. That's always a whole nother story. Butt cans, parking cars, telling people where they can be, where they can't be. You know, they're sort of policing sets in a nice way. And then scouts are brought on early on. It usually works this way for me. I will be hired as a scout, and then as we get closer to production, I will be turned into a location manager. And then I'll bring on the crew members to fill in the department. And you can have as many ALMs as you want. They're basically location PAs, but they're not PAs. They're typically not doing lockups. They're not, you know, look, ALMs have a pretty cush job sometimes. They get to hang out a lot and sit in their trucks and listen to walkies and, you know, run AC hoses and, you know, just put out fires and take care of problems. And then call the Keys if it's something bigger than they're allowed to handle, or they could be lettering neighborhoods, getting signatures of approval or disapproval for filming. ALMs are just sort of PAs of the location department, but they run the set in absence of the Keys. Because a key will usually have to go on to the next location or be wrapping a location. So, you know, get the crew in, and then the ALMs will sit there and run the set for the 12-hour, 14-hour day. And I will, as the key, will go prep another location or wrap another location. With
Right on.
with the ALMs that have been assigned at those other locations. So there's ALMs assigned to locations, and then there's ALMs that travel with the production crew. So they know all the crew members, they know all the people know them. So it's a really good community thing that gets built there, that film family. And then other prep ALMs can exist as well. Prep wrap.
Well, I mean, that's all the questions I have, and that's all the questions I see in our chat. We are about 5 minutes over time, so I do want to make sure that we're kind of getting towards wrapping up. But you know, I want to just kind of say this to all those out there, and this is something that I preach heavily, is like we are all representatives of this industry. And when even if it comes to a short film or you know you're just doing some TikTok content, regardless of it, you're a representative of this, you know, this multimedia world that we're in. And we should do such as to follow sort of the rules that are within the locations department and making sure that we're representing this community the correct way, which you know includes safety and many other things. And that's sort of what your department and the production department are responsible for. So I just want to thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us. And, you know, just mention that location work is unpredictable, and some of the best productions are those that are kept safety in the forefront. Um, so practicing both that with the crew and the communities that are out there. So let's continue to keep the set safe, and wherever we shoot, we have a manager or somebody representing that location on set. So, and if anybody else has anything to add.
Actually, of course I do.
Right.
I wanted to let everybody know on this call that, as Andrew, you were talking about trains and how so many people aren't using trains anymore. We have a wonderful resource here, and that is the Lake Superior Train Museum. And they own the tracks. So for 30 miles, they can stop, start, back up, get people on, get people off, do whatever you need them to do. And in price comparison with other entities around the country, they are not that expensive, and they're happy to do it, and they're very, very film friendly. So if you guys are ever in a position where you need a train, that's a really good one to go to. And Andrew, thank you so, so much. I learn something every time I listen to you. So, and I've been doing location stuff for a long time. So I'm very, very appreciative of you.
Thanks, Ricky. Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's always fun. It's always good to see people's faces that like movies.
Well, I see you put your contact up in the chat. I'm assuming that's cool for anybody who has any follow-up questions to reach out.
Bring it on.
Yeah, and obviously use us as a resource as well. If you have any other questions, or just want to see kind of the location database, check out our website at uppermidwestfilmandtv.org, filmtv.org. But with that, we'll end this, and thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.